Hi, and welcome back. You're here because you want to lead life-changing events. And if you haven't already, go ahead and download the Butts in Seats checklist so you can always fill your rooms and workshops with enough participants. That checklist is going to be like gold for you. It has been for thousands of my clients. And I'm Sage Levine, and really this is my favorite topic because I believe, like you do, that live workshops are the most effective space for creating healing and lasting transformation in the people that you work with. And you learned on the last video why workshops are also really the best avenue for building a message-based business and creating long-term sustainable income by using workshops to find your ideal paying clients really quickly. And in this video, I want to expand on the checklist below so that you learn how to fill a room and you always have enough people attending your workshops. That's what we call around here butts in seats. And when you have the tools to fill a room, you can forever use your events to help you grow your business, make great money, and give back to the world. In the last video, I shared a detailed path to becoming a workshop leader so that you can use events to build your business. If you haven't seen video number 1, go ahead and pause me right now and watch that video and come back, because that first video is going to give you the background to everything I'm about to share. And why are workshops so effective anyway? Here's the thing, real healing happens in relationship with other humans. The challenges that we've been through in our lives that caused those wounds within us, those challenges took place in relationship breakdowns. And so what better place to create the healing for those wounds than a live community of support where you can get away from your life and really do the inner work. I find transformational workshops at times to be an even more effective container for healing than therapy. Now, there's a time and a place for therapy, and there's a time and a place for workshops. But workshops provide that opportunity to connect in a safe and a structured way through partner exercises and interactions. Workshops allow an opportunity to really feel your feelings and go into the depth of your pains alongside others who are actually doing the same work. And live events also provide that sense of connection and community that we just don't usually get in everyday life. And it's because of my workshops and live events that I've also been able to serve thousands of women entrepreneurs and create millions of dollars of income for myself and my company through doing something that I just love to do. And I want that for you as well. I've also had a great opportunity to take clients on retreats all over the world to Africa, Bali, and Ecuador. And we host events here on the California coast every year that thousands of women have attended and had the biggest business breakthroughs of their lives. And I'm looking forward so much to leading our upcoming 3-day Women's Leadership Summit here this spring, which I hope you'll join me for on the California coast. And in a moment, I'll share 3 of my best strategies to help you fill those workshops and get those butts in seats, because without participants, it's really difficult to create a successful event. But first, I want to set you up to really rock your workshops. So let's talk about what might be in the way of you leading your workshops and changing the lives of your future clients. It can be downright scary getting on stage, can't it? All of that energy, it's on you. Literally, to have all those people's attention directed toward you physiologically, it can be nerve-wracking. And if you have stuff going on in your personal life, getting on stage can feel even more raw. I want to tell you a quick, pretty vulnerable story about a big transformation that I've had in my life. I had just started my business when my husband at the time and I chose to separate. It was the most painful thing I had ever experienced. I was in the middle of preparing for a lifelong dream I had of leading a retreat in Bali. My friend Heather and I had just enrolled 15 women to come to Bali on retreat with us. And meanwhile, my personal life was falling apart. I had no idea the agony I would feel going through that divorce. It was as if somebody had pulled my umbilical cord out of my solar plexus. And throughout the weeks following, the grieving and the tears, the last thing I wanted to do was lead this Bali retreat. What would I have to say that would even empower women? My life was falling apart. But in the process of me saying yes to leading that retreat through my fear, as I packed for Bali, another dream of mine came true. It had been part of my vision to use some of our retreat time to support Balinese women who are stuck in abusive situations. You see, it's legal to hit your wife in Bali. Women have far less rights in Indonesia than they do here. So what happened next was nothing short of divine intervention. The night before I left for Bali, a friend of a friend actually knocked on my door, and he had an envelope full of cash that he wanted me to take to his friend Tika in Bali. He told me she was a woman who helps women in Bali leave abusive situations and start businesses. He had just gotten a bonus at work, and he wanted me to take that money to Tika. He even gave me his Bali cell phone that had her number in it and told me I could call her up when I arrived. And so I did. And I'll never forget sitting down and looking in Tika's eyes that day. It was as if we had traveled through lifetimes together. And when I heard what things are like for women in Indonesia, I remember saying to myself, I can't afford to be stuck in grief over my divorce. I have a purpose. I'm here to help women. And that commitment to service, it lifted me right up out of my fear, my self-doubt, and my grief. And Tika brought the women that she works with in Bali to meet our American women at the retreat center. And we were together able to raise another $10,000 for Tika's organization to help women start businesses and leave abusive situations in Bali rather than turning to prostitution. Since then, we've helped 37 women in Bali start businesses, in addition to the other humanitarian work we've done in Ecuador and Africa, and right here in California. And I have a deep knowing that when you make a decision to really serve others through your business success, just like I have, you can actually circumvent so much of the fear and the resistance that stops you from really stepping out there. And you posted some great Facebook comments about your fears and your resistances on the thread below. You know, Jerry Seinfeld once said that the number one fear of Americans is public speaking. Most people would rather be lying in the casket than giving the eulogy. In a few moments, I'm going to share those 3 key steps to get your butts in seats and fill your room. But first, I want to respond to those Facebook posts. Melissa posted that her fear and resistance comes up in forms of shame. She wonders what gives her the right to even get on stage in the first place. She has a fear that she'll get heckled, and she's afraid of conflict in the room. She's scared she'll come across as a know-it-all on stage. And she's in touch with the fear of being seen and of being rejected. I can relate to all of those fears, and I'm sure you can relate too, even if you haven't felt those specifically. Sonali posted that as a woman of color, she fears a certain kind of judgment from her participants. And she wonders if she can stand in the truth of her message and not be labeled a feminist. She's afraid that her strength won't be seen through her vulnerability. Again, the stakes of getting out on stage feel so high because we're not peddling a product or hiding out behind someone else's script. It's just us up there. Thank you, Melissa, and thank you, Sonali, for all of your vulnerable posts. And I'd like to share some of what I teach my clients to do so that you can confront and integrate those fears of getting on stage. First of all, it's totally normal to have fears of getting up in front of people. But what's more painful than the fear of getting on stage is the pain of not reaching the people that you're here to reach. I believe your people are waiting for you. They're literally waiting for you right now. They deserve for you to not be stuck in your fear. And the biggest fear my clients report to me when they're considering leading their own events is that nobody will attend, nobody will come to my party syndrome. And what I find when I dig deeper is usually something else, another fear that lies underneath that fear of nobody showing up. And it usually sounds something like, what if people actually come and then they judge me? Or what if I freeze on stage and I don't know what to say? And the classic fear, what right do I really have to be up there? Am I credible? What do I have to say that's going to make a difference in anybody's life? And if I can help you discover that you, in fact, do have something to say that will absolutely make a difference for people, it's going to be a lot easier to shift that fear that you have of nobody showing up. I know it's intimidating, but I assure you that if you have the desire to get up and bring a message, then there is a message that only you can bring. See if you can perceive into this for a moment. Your willingness to get up there and teach and inspire people will actually help them solve their biggest problems and challenges and heal their deepest aches and longings. That's why you're being called to do this in the first place. When you can get out of your own way and surrender into service, it's much easier to take your power back and get out of the fear of your workshop participants judging or heckling you. What I'm about ready to say will be a little bit bold, but the truth is that you getting caught in your fear makes it all about you. And instead, I recommend that you focus on the people you're here to help. I'll never forget when one of my mentors looked me in the eyes and said, "Sage, you staying caught in your fear is one of the most selfish things you can do." That moment will forever change my orientation to serving others. So instead of worrying, I invite you to ask yourself the question, how can I serve? And listen for whatever answer comes. And you know what? Fear also keeps you humble. Being in touch with your fear will actually keep you connected to your participants and the challenges that your participants are going through that actually inspired them to show up for your event in the first place. And staying connected to your fear, it keeps you human. And your people will feel that and they'll trust you for it. I want to speak to the fear of not feeling credible, the fear of not having the right letters or certifications behind your name. Your clients don't actually care what your training is. They only care that you can help them. If you were to ask any of my clients, they wouldn't even know that I have a master's degree or an advanced coaching certificate. They hire me because of my commitment to them, my knowledge base, and the strategies that I teach. They also come to me because of my beliefs. I believe it's possible to build a very successful business while honoring values of generosity, love, and service. And I believe making great money is part of your spiritual path. And I believe that we all have an opportunity to create our business success and give back to the greater social good. And I believe none of us should have to work more than about 12 days a month to have a great lifestyle. What do you believe? It's the stand that you take on behalf of your clients that's going to have people flocking to your live events. And here's another huge tip to curb your fear. Be prepared. Don't get on stage clueless about what you're going to say. Create an outline and practice it. The more you practice, the easier it is to surrender and focus on having a great performance. Malcolm Gladwell wrote that mastery comes with 10,000 hours of practice behind you. The pros know that it's critical to be prepared, to have an outline, and to practice. And that means also letting yourself be a beginner. Don't expect to be perfect all at once. So I recommend that you do always prepare the following 4 things when you're about to get on stage. Number 1, an introduction that engages your audience right away. Number 2, a story that illustrates your credibility to be on stage as well as your vulnerability, like we talked about in the last video. Number 3, you'll want to prepare your main teaching points. And number 4, be sure to prepare a call to action or an offer for your participants. Having an outline and practicing will allow you to relax and trust any spontaneity that wants to come through. And you can always return to your outline to make sure that you don't miss any key points. And always ask yourself, what's the most important thing that I want to share? If my participants only remember one thing, what would I have them walk away with? So let's talk about what it really takes to also fill your live events. Because if you're going to go to the effort of hosting a workshop, we want people in a room. Like we say in the workshop world, you need those butts in seats. So here's some tips for filling your live events. And I love this topic. I could talk about it all day long. But what I really want to be sure you have are my 3 quickest and most effective room filling strategies. The first strategy is to host free workshops and then offer your paid services at those workshops. This eliminates as much resistance as possible to people attending, especially when you haven't really established a reputation yet for yourself. A lot of my clients start out leading free workshops that are shorter, like a 2-hour evening workshop. And it's easy for people to find the time when it's just a couple of hours. And when people can attend an event for free, it makes it an easy yes. And a lot of mentors will tell you to charge for your events. I disagree. I'd rather see you get as many people in the room as possible and then make an offer to those people in the room to continue working with you. Think about it. Imagine that you could charge $25 a head for your workshop and 6 people attend. Well, you just made $150. On the other hand, if you had offered your workshop for free, perhaps 12 people would have showed up. And if you had made an offer for private mentorship at that workshop, and then you took the time to meet with participants privately in the days following the workshop, offering a private mentorship package, out of those 12 people, it's pretty likely that you would have at least 3 people wanting to continue working with you. And let's say that those 3 people invested $2,000 each into a private mentorship package. Well, you would have made $6,000, which is a lot more than $150. So again, I'm building a case for you to start out speaking for free. Because the more people you have in the room, the more potential customers and clients you have to offer your services on the back end. Another reason to consider leading free events rather than charging for your events is that you can actually advertise your workshops as community events in your local paper when they're free. And if it's a free community event, you can put an advertisement in your paper underneath the community event section, which again, it's great free advertising for you. And you can ask that people register by emailing you or going to your website if you have one, and you'll get some great exposure that way. Now, if you're leading longer workshops, like a weekend workshop, and it's a sales event where you're making a big offer from stage, I recommend collecting some sort of a seat deposit, because in that instance, you will want to get people's commitment to show up. You can actually collect like a $97 seat deposit and refund that $97 at the door when people show up. Okay, so here's another super hot workshop filling strategy, which is going to sound like a no-brainer, but it's actually the thing that I find most beginners struggle with, and that's to choose a workshop topic and a title that provides a very clear result. No offense, I say this with total love, but people aren't coming just to hear you talk, especially in the beginning. And I know it can be tricky to find a title that really stands out. It's common to make the mistake of choosing an overly general or ambiguous title. Here's a hint. You'll want to choose a title that passes what I call the face test, so that when you tell people about your workshop, they actually have a face come to mind. My client Claire was a massage therapist who wanted to get out of that time for dollars paradigm, and she had a background in helping people live their dreams. So she launched a workshop called Live Your Passion, and when she promoted it, she didn't get very much interest. So we worked together to find a title that was more specific and results-oriented. She ended up choosing 3 steps to design your passionate career, and a subtitle that said, Supporting Women in Career Transition to Create Meaningful Next Chapters. When you hear that, you probably have a face come to mind. You might even know a woman who's experiencing confusion on her career path, and you could send her to Claire's workshop. When Claire shifted her title, she had 18 people attend her very next workshop, and 5 of them became clients, which resulted in $18,000 of income just from changing her title. I see entrepreneurs make the mistake of spending hours attempting to fill and create wonderful workshops that don't have clear, marketable titles. So when you come up with your title, be sure to run it by several of your friends and colleagues. And when you share it with them, ask them if a face comes to mind. A few more example titles of workshops that my clients have used successfully include 3 Steps to Curbing Sugar Cravings, Learn What to Eat Over the Holidays so you don't gain that unwanted weight, Should I Stay or Should I Go? How to Know Whether Your Marriage is Working, and 5 Keys to Becoming a Balanced Parent. How to cure overwhelm and take care of yourself so you have great relationships with your kids. When you look at these titles, you know who you would send to these workshops. A face comes to mind, and the titles are clear and they're simple. They're in language a 12-year-old could understand. You can do this, right? Okay, so here's strategy number 3 to fill your event. You can team up with other businesses or leaders in your community who have already gathered a group of customers or clients. When I first got started, I partnered with my chiropractor, and I led a workshop in his waiting room. He sent an email out to a couple of thousand people that he knew in Santa Cruz, inviting them to attend a free workshop for purposeful entrepreneurs. It was a great free service that he could provide for his customers, and it was educational, it was inspirational, and 23 people showed up that night, and 11 of them ended up becoming my clients, resulting in $25,000 in sales. In my last life as a school teacher, it took me a year to earn that much money. Again, workshops are an incredible way to create a sustainable profit in your business. And now we actually have a meetup group here in Santa Cruz that has over 400 members. And we've done over $500,000 in sales just from that meetup over the last couple of years. You can actually team up with experts, community groups, meetup groups, and other businesses in your neighborhood like bookstores and healing centers, day spas and libraries, local nonprofits. Really, the sky's the limit here. But I recommend you start small. Don't overshoot. It's better to plan on 5 to 10 people coming and exceed your expectations than go into the experience with an inflated vision that will end up leaving you disappointed. All right, we've covered a lot of ground. We started by addressing your most common fears. And remember these key questions when you're starting to worry about how you look or whether you're going to be judged on stage. Always ask yourself, what do I believe is possible for my clients? And how can I serve people today? Make it about your future clients rather than your fear. And the 3 steps to filling your workshops are, number 1, keep your workshops free. Number 2, have a clear topic that passes the face test. And number 3, partner with experts that can bring you an audience. And in the 3rd video, I'll teach you my recipe for monetizing your workshops. Because if you're not making great money, it's hard to stay in business. And I stand for you having a profitable business that's not just a hobby. I'll also share my recipe to creating a live event that generates at least $50,000 in profit so that you can create your monetizing plan, whether it's $5,000, $50,000, $100,000 or more. So go ahead and take a moment and post the draft of your next workshop title here on the Facebook thread below. Post your titles, whatever form they're in. It's okay if they're raw or still unfolding. Let's give each other some support and some valuable feedback. You got us off to a great start on the last video with your vulnerable shares about your fears. Let's keep that connection going and share your workshop titles below. And then give each other honest feedback as to whether your title passes the face test or not. And I want to leave you with this final thought. The world is full of people with great ideas, but what the world needs more of is people who are actually willing to show up and take action and implement those ideas to change people's lives one step at a time. Thank you for being with me on this journey. I look forward to giving you feedback on your workshop titles on the thread below, and I look forward to you taking the action steps required to get your message out there. I'll see you on video number 3.